The answer to this question is 53.33 litres. Now, this question's a really good question because it's testing a student's understanding of the units and how to convert between them. So I'm going to highlight this little bit yellow here where it talks about units, but we'll come to that in just a second. When we tackle any calculations question, what's the very first thing we should be doing after reading the question? We should be writing a question mark and we should be writing the units. And from there, we should build a statement as to what the question wants from us. How many litres would 8 milligrams of hydrogen peroxide contain if we're given the concentration up there? So question mark litres of our hydrogen peroxide, question mark litres of this 0.15 ppm weight in volume is going to be equal to 8 milligrams. That's what the question's asking me. Now, let's focus on the units over here and let's understand this first of all. So, weight in volume, what does that mean? That's physically telling you that you've got some kind of grams in mils. In calculation questions, when we're given a scenario W-V and they don't physically say anything else like a percentage or anything like that next to it, then we're going to write down that it's number of grams in number of mils. Okay, that's what that statement's telling you. You can't jump to the conclusion that it means question mark grams in 100 mils. That would be wrong. Why? Because it's not saying percentage weight in volume. If it said percentage in the question, W-V, then yes, that would mean question mark so many grams in 100 mils. That's when we understand to use the term 100 mils as a percentage. Let's focus on the next part of the question, ppm, parts per million. Now, parts per million is as the name denotes. It means that you've got so many grams in 1 million mils. So you've got 1 and 6 zeros. We can take the value from the question, 0.15, and we can put that in. So we can say we've got 0.15 grams in 1 million mils. And from here, we can now work out how many is going to be in 8 milligrams, because this part of the statement here is talking about our drug, the hydrogen peroxide, and we know that we are trying to get to 8 milligrams. So what we can do is we can convert it to milligrams first by timesing our grams by 1,000. So I'll just get my calculator a second. 0.15 times 1,000 is 150 milligrams, and that's in, again, I'm just copying the statement above. Notice how I'm laying it out and I'm writing it exactly underneath the last statement to avoid the risk of a mistake. So now that I've got to milligrams in 1 million mils, now what I can do is underneath this statement, I can write my 8 milligrams I'm trying to get to, and I can say 8 milligrams is going to be in question mark mils on the right, which I don't currently know. And what I have to do is understand that whatever the multiplication factor is, or the division factor you use, on the left to go from 150 milligrams to 8 milligrams, I'm going to use that same multiplication factor on the right to keep the statement true. Because when you have a statement, if you change something in that statement on one side, let's say the left or the right, you have to do the same to the other side. Difference comes when it comes to units. Notice up here that when we had grams and we converted it to milligrams, we didn't need to times the other side by 1,000 or divide it by 1,000. No, because we're changing the units. We're changing the units. So the amount physically is still the same, because 0.15 grams weighs the same as 150 milligrams below it. We converted the units. But when we physically change the number, so let me get a different highlighter to show you. So we're going from 150 milligrams to 8 milligrams on the left over here. Then we're going to have to do the same adjustment to the other side to keep the balance the same. Think of it like a weighing scale. The old school weighing scales where we used to have a scale on the left and a scale on the right, and they were connected over here. Whatever weight you put on this side, you had to put the equivalent amount of weight on the other side to get it to balance in the middle. Well, that's what we're saying. What we're saying is that if we've got 150 milligrams on the left on our weighing scale, and we're saying that that balances to 1 million mils on the right, then if I change this balance on the left and I remove the weight and I put 8 milligrams there, then on this side, that mils is going to change in order to balance against my 8 milligram. That's what this statement philosophy is, that when we say if we change one side, we're doing the same to the other. Okay, so what are we going to do? How do we actually work this out then? How do we get this division factor? Well, what you do on your calculator is you actually take your 8 milligrams and you divide it by the number above it, 150. On your calculator, if you do 8 divided by 150, you will get a multiplication factor of 0.05 and lots of 3s. So that's the multiplication factor. What that's saying is that number times by 150 milligram gives you 8 milligrams. And you take that multiplication factor and you use it on the right. So on the right now, we're going to do 1 million mils times that multiplication factor. So you've already got this number on the screen, this 0.053333, times it by 1 million mils, so 1 with 6 zeros, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on my calculator. I'm always double checking the values that I'm inputting on the calculator, because in the GPHC exam, you don't want to make any silly mistakes on entering errors on your calculator. So I got 53333.3 mils. That's the answer I got on my calculator. Now the question wants the answer in litres. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide this by 1,000 to convert it to litres, because mils, there's 1,000 mils in 1 litre. So press divide by 1,000 on your calculator and you get an answer of 53.3333. Now the question says give your answer to 2 decimal places. So what you have to do is find the second decimal place position, which is there. It's the second place after the decimal dot. I've put a red box around it to show you. And I like to put a dash under the number next to it. And I say, is this number with a dash underneath it? I cross everything else out and I say, is the number to the right of the number I'm interested in? Is that number with an arrow underneath it? Is it less than 5, equal to 5, or greater than 5? Because the rule in rounding is, if it's 5 or more, you let it soft. So if it's greater than 5 or equal to 5, we'll round up. So this number with an arrow underneath it is less than 5. So we leave it, we ignore it, and we leave our answer as 53.33 litres. That's the answer that we would submit in the exam. The learning point from this question was really understanding that term, wasn't it? They gave you 0.15 ppm WV. And again, it's about understanding these units. I hope you found today's training video useful. Please give a like and subscribe to the teaching channel so that I know that you're here and you're watching it and you're enjoying it. And in that case, I can then make some more of these great training videos for you. Also, share this video with any of your fellow colleagues or students who may find it useful.